Hi, in this video we're going to look at DHCP filtering, and so we're going to go to our head office DC1. It's got a DHCP server installed. If we look at the tools and look at DHCP, we've got view updates. Let's get rid of that. There we go, got rid of. Okay, so here's our DHCP management console. If we expand out our domain and IP version 4, we'll see that we've got a scope here with address leases. So the Windows 10 machine has got an IP address. So let's have a quick look at that. CMD and do an IP config/all. And you can see here that we've got a 0.20 IP address given to us by the DHCP server 0.2, which is the server here. So currently the Windows 10 machine is plugged into the same subnet as the HODC1 at the moment. Okay, so and we can see that it's got the right DNS servers and all the rest of the stuff. The important thing for us though is the MAC address. So what's this MAC address here? Okay, so that MAC address is what we're going to put into a MAC filtering rule. So back on our server, you'll notice that that MAC address is this MAC address here, this unique identity here is that MAC address. Okay, so what we're going to look at is filters. So if we look at the filters here that work for all of IP version 4, we have two filters. One that's allow and one that's deny, and they're both currently with a little red down arrow, which means neither of those are enabled. So we could, if we clicked on it, we could hit the enable and to enable that filter. But what we're going to do first of all is we're going to right mouse click on this, and we can add this to one of the filters, either the allow or deny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to the deny filter. So if we have a look at the deny, we'll now see that this Windows 10 machine is now in the deny list. However, that deny list not being there at the moment, like it's turned off, not enabled, this thing will still get an IP address. So on our Windows 10 machine, if I do an IP config /release, it'll release the current IP address and end up with nothing. And if we do a renew, that'll renew the IP address, and we've got an IP address. Okay, so I'm going to enable this filter. So now we have a deny, and over here I'm going to do a release, which releases it, and then I'm going to do a renew. Now what will happen is we'll get an error. It'll take a little while for this to come through because it's got a timeout. We could probably change the timeout to be a little bit less, but it's not getting an IP address because we have denied it. So we'll just let that run until we actually get the error message. the important thing for us to look at here is deny, but I mean basically everything's allowed unless it's on the, so this is a blacklist essentially. I've blacklisted the Windows 10 machine's MAC address. Normally what you would do is, instead of blacklisting addresses that you don't like, is to deny everyone except for ones that are known to you that are on a whitelist. That's probably a better way, you know, deny everything and only allow the ones that you want. So what I would do is I would actually create an allow filter and move this one to the allows and enable it. And that way only the ones that are on this filter are allowed. There is you can use what's called wildcards in this as well. So if I go to the allow rule and I go new filter in here, I'm going to have a look at the MAC address of this thing here a bit further up, which was the 080027. For everything that's a VirtualBox virtual machine, it'll, you know, if it gets an IP address, it'll have that sort of like stands for, this part here stands for VirtualBox, and this is the random or unique number, this part here. So this is sort of like the manufacturer's identity in the MAC address. So if I put a over here and I go 080027 and then star, the description, this is allow all VirtualBox NICs. Okay, so I'm going to add that to the list. And that's not quite the way that if I edit that, that should be a 08. My mistake. 080027, and then everything else is whatever the random NICs are. So that's an allow all for all VirtualBox NICs. And so far, our renew, because we've still got it as a deny at the moment, comes up with an error code while renewing the Ethernet, the interface Ethernet, unable to contact your DHCP server. Request is timed out. So that timeout was, you know, however long it was, a couple of minutes, and that's all because of this deny filter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an allow. I'm going to enable this one, and I'm going to disable that filter. So I've enabled basically the allow all rule, and so if I hit renew again, it will get an IP address, as you can see it does. But I'm also going to enable, so this basically allows everything that's got a VirtualBox address. Now normally what I would do is I'd only put the actual addresses that I want on that list and make it a whitelist. Okay, so it's only the things on this whitelist that. But at the moment I've put a wildcard, everything that's VirtualBox. I'm going to see whether the allow or the deny has precedence. So I'm going to enable the deny as well. Okay, so I've got allow all VirtualBox, but deny this particular IP address. So I'm going to release it, and then I'm going to renew it. This will tell us whether deny has precedence over allow. And I think you can see by the hesitation or the delay that deny is actually going to win. So even though I'm using the filter that says allow all, this deny is going to win. So if we look at, for example, devices and go to network and network settings, you can see under the advanced for all of these, you've got a MAC address and you've got this generates a new random MAC address. Now every time you do that, it will always, because it's VirtualBox, start with a 080027 and then it'll just be the last part that'll vary. So I mean, you can just create brand new random addresses at any time on your, obviously not while the thing's running. It has to be stopped before you can do that. Okay, so you can see that we're getting an error here, nothing's coming up. We'll just have to wait a couple of minutes. And then what I'm going to do is, that proves that deny has precedence over allow. So even though I've got an allow rule that says it's allowed, I've also got a deny rule which says it's not allowed, which means it's not allowed. Okay, the deny has precedence. What I am going to do is I'm going to delete this rule, and I'm going to move, because you can see that the error has now come up. An error occurred while. Okay, so on the deny, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right mouse click and I'll move this to allow. So now I'm just going to disable the denies and I'm just going to leave the allows. So at the moment now, if I hit renew, it will be allowed, and so actually what we'll do is we'll move it back to the deny. Okay, so it's in the deny, the deny is turned off. There is an allow rule on, but this is not on the allow rule list. So let's just say you had, I had a whole bunch of machines which were allowed. We stuck them in this allow list, and actually, let's put it in there. So move it to the allow list. And in the allow list here, we're going to edit the filter. So I'm going to change this to, instead of 0E, I'm going to change this to FF. Okay, so I've got a device, a legitimate device that's on our list that's allowed in, and I've got this intruder. Okay, so this is a list of all the people that are allowed. This is an intruder because he's got a different MAC address. So if we go back up here to where the MAC addresses are, he's got the 0E MAC address, this one here. Okay, and so he's not on the list, therefore he can't get in. So obviously if I hit a renew again, I will not get an IP address granted to me because I'm not on the allowed list. I'm not on the whitelist. So this is a typical thing that I would normally do under wireless, but you can also do this via the standard Windows DHCP server. This is called DHCP filtering. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this filter and I'm going to change this to a 0E, which is back in the list. Control C, and I'll do a renew again. And I get it because I've got the right, I'm on the list. Okay, so that demonstrates the concept of MAC filtering using a Windows-based DHCP server.